Solomon's ascension to the throne. Solomon's rise to the throne of Israel was marked by political intrigue, divine favor, and the fulfillment of King David's wishes. As the son of David and Bathsheba, Solomon was not the eldest among David's children, which made his succession less straightforward. His ascension was a critical moment in Israel's history, setting the stage for what would become one of the nation's most prosperous and influential reigns. The political struggle for succession. As David grew old and frail, the question of succession became a pressing issue. Adonijah, David's eldest surviving son, saw an opportunity to claim the throne. He gathered support from key figures, including Joab, the commander of the army, and Abiathar, the priest. Confident in his position, Adonijah organized a public coronation feast, attempting to establish himself as king without David's direct approval. However, Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan acted quickly to counter Adonijah's move. They approached the aging King David, reminding him of his promise that Solomon would be his successor. Moved by their words and guided by divine will, David reaffirmed Solomon as the rightful heir. He ordered that Solomon be anointed and publicly proclaimed as king under the authority of the high priest Zadok and the prophet Nathan. The anointing of Solomon. To legitimize Solomon's kingship, David instructed Zadok and Nathan to anoint Solomon with sacred oil at the Gihon Spring, a significant location for royal ceremonies. This public anointing was accompanied by the blowing of a trumpet and loud rejoicing from the people, signaling to the nation that Solomon was the divinely appointed ruler. When Adonijah and his supporters heard the celebrations, they realized that their coup had failed. Fearful of Solomon's retribution, Adonijah sought sanctuary at the altar, pleading for mercy. Solomon, demonstrating wisdom and restraint, spared Adonijah's life under the condition that he remained loyal. David's final instructions. Before his death, David gave Solomon crucial advice on how to rule wisely and uphold God's commandments. He urged his son to remain faithful to God and to administer justice, particularly concerning political threats like Joab and Shimei, who had previously opposed David. These instructions helped Solomon consolidate power and secure his rule. The elimination of political rivals. After David's death, Solomon acted decisively to strengthen his reign. Adonijah, despite his earlier pardon, made another political move by requesting to marry Abishag, a concubine of David. This was interpreted as an attempt to legitimize a claim to the throne, and Solomon ordered Adonijah's execution. Similarly, Joab and Abiathar, who had supported Adonijah, were removed from power. Joab was executed, and Abiathar was exiled. The establishment of Solomon's rule. With his rivals eliminated and the kingdom stabilized, Solomon's rule was firmly established. His ascension marked the beginning of an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity for Israel. His wisdom, granted by God, would later define his reign and bring him renown across the ancient world. Would you like me to expand on any specific aspect of this event? Solomon's divine wisdom. One of the most famous demonstrations of Solomon's wisdom occurred when two women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of the same baby. Each woman insisted that the living child was hers and that the other woman's baby had died. Solomon, seeking divine wisdom, proposed a shocking solution. He ordered that the child be cut in two, with each woman receiving half. One woman immediately pleaded for the child's life, offering to give him up so he could live, while the other agreed to the division. Recognizing true maternal love, Solomon declared that the woman who wished to save the baby was the real mother and returned the child to her. News of his wisdom spread throughout Israel. The construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. The construction of the Temple of Jerusalem was one of King Solomon's greatest achievements. Built as a permanent dwelling place for the Ark of the Covenant, it symbolized Israel's spiritual and national identity. The temple stood as a fulfillment of God's promise to David and became the central place of worship for the Israelites. Solomon's preparation for the temple. Although King David had envisioned building a temple for God, he was not allowed to do so because he had been a warrior who had shed much blood. 1 Chronicles 22-8. Instead, God chose Solomon to undertake this sacred task. Before his death, David provided Solomon with detailed plans, abundant materials, and instructions to ensure the temple's construction would reflect the glory of God. Recognizing the magnitude of the project, Solomon sought help from Hiram, the king of Tyre, who had been an ally of David. Hiram provided cedar and cypress wood from Lebanon, as well as skilled craftsmen to assist in the construction. In return, Solomon sent large quantities of wheat and olive oil to Tyre, securing a prosperous trade alliance. The construction process. The construction of the temple began in the 4th year of Solomon's reign and took 7 years to complete, 1 Kings 6:1. The site chosen for the temple was Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, the same location where Abraham had nearly sacrificed Isaac, 2 Chronicles 3:1. To maintain the sanctity of the temple, the stones used in its construction were prepared off-site, so that no hammer, chisel, or iron tool was heard at the building site, 1 Kings 6-7. This detail emphasized the sacred nature of the work and the divine peace that the temple represented. The structure itself was magnificent. It measured approximately 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet high, 1 Kings 6-2. The interior was adorned with gold, precious stones, and intricate carvings of cherubim, palm trees, and flowers. The temple consisted of 3 main sections. The outer court, a large open area where people gathered for worship. The holy place, a sacred chamber where priests performed daily rituals, such as offering incense and tending the golden lampstand. The most holy place, Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctuary, separated by a grand curtain. This chamber housed the Ark of the Covenant and was entered only once a year by the high priest on the Day of Atonement. The dedication of the temple. Once the temple was completed, Solomon organized a grand dedication ceremony, inviting all the elders, priests, and people of Israel. The Ark of the Covenant was brought into the Holy of Holies, and as the priests withdrew, the glory of the Lord filled the temple in the form of a great cloud, 1 Kings 8:10-11. Solomon then prayed a powerful prayer of dedication, acknowledging God's greatness and asking for his continued presence and blessing upon Israel. He emphasized that no earthly structure could fully contain God, but the temple would serve as a place for his name to dwell and for the people to seek his guidance. After his prayer, Solomon offered thousands of sacrifices, and a great feast was held in celebration. The significance of the temple. The Temple of Jerusalem became the spiritual heart of Israel. It was the center of worship, sacrifices, and the annual festivals. For centuries, it stood as a testament to Israel's covenant with God. However, Solomon was warned that if Israel turned away from God, the temple would be destroyed. 1 Kings 9-6-9. Unfortunately, this prophecy came true when the Babylonians destroyed the temple in 586 BCE due to Israel's disobedience. Despite its destruction, the memory of Solomon's temple remained, leading to its reconstruction in later years. Even today, it holds deep religious significance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. Would you like me to expand on any specific part of the story? Solomon's wealth and prosperous reign. During Solomon's reign, Israel experienced an era of unparalleled wealth, peace, and influence. His wisdom attracted rulers from distant lands, and his strategic alliances and trade agreements brought immense prosperity to the kingdom. One of the most famous accounts of Solomon's wealth was his encounter with the Queen of Sheba. Hearing of his wisdom and riches, she traveled with a grand caravan carrying gold, spices, and precious stones to test him with difficult questions. Solomon answered them all with ease, impressing her greatly. Astonished by his wisdom, the grandeur of his palace, and the abundance in his court, the queen declared, "The half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity far exceed the report I heard." 1 Kings 10-7. Before leaving, she gifted Solomon vast treasures, further adding to his wealth. Under Solomon's rule, Israel flourished with international trade, high taxation revenue, and impressive architectural projects, including the construction of the temple and his opulent palace. Silver became as common as stones in Jerusalem, 1 Kings 10:27, symbolizing the kingdom's immense prosperity. However, despite his success, Solomon's excessive wealth and heavy taxation eventually led to dissatisfaction among the people, contributing to the division of the kingdom after his death. Solomon's fall and idolatry. Despite his wisdom and prosperity, Solomon's later years were marked by a tragic spiritual decline. As he grew older, he allowed his many foreign wives to influence him, leading him away from his devotion to God. Solomon had married numerous women from surrounding nations: Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, despite God's clear warning that such unions could turn his heart toward false gods. 1 Kings 11:1-2. These wives persuaded him to build altars and temples for their deities, including Chemosh, Molech, and Ashtoreth. Solomon himself participated in idolatrous worship, forsaking the one true God who had blessed his reign. Because of his unfaithfulness, God declared that the kingdom would be torn from him after his death. Although Solomon's son, Rehoboam, would retain a small portion of the kingdom, Judah, the majority of Israel would be given to another ruler, Jeroboam. This division would mark the beginning of Israel's decline, leading to internal conflicts and vulnerability to foreign invasions. Closing thoughts. Solomon's story is a powerful lesson. Wisdom, wealth, and success cannot replace faithfulness to God. His reign began with divine favor, but ended in spiritual compromise, showing that even the wisest can fall if they turn their hearts away from their Creator. His life serves as both an inspiration and a warning, reminding us that true prosperity comes not just from knowledge and riches, but from unwavering devotion to God. What we build with wisdom can be lost through disobedience. Let Solomon's story remind us that our greatest treasure is not wealth or power, but a heart that remains faithful to God.